We all like to bring the best possible loadout into our missions, but sometimes we can get sidetracked away from the reason that we even like to play games in the first place. It's called having fun. Some people forget to have fun when they play games, and I can't pretend to understand that. And that's why we're going to be talking about some of the most fun weapons in Helldivers 2, in my opinion. I'll be covering my favorite primaries, secondaries, throwables, and support weapons that I like to take when I just want to have a good time. So hopefully, this will inspire you to try some weapons that you may not have considered before, or maybe I've just reminded you to slow down and have some fun when you play. Both are good things. We're going to get started with our first weapon category, the primaries, with our first weapon, the AR-23C Liberator Concussive. We're starting off here with a bit of an unusual pick, but I think this is a pretty fun weapon for a few reasons. It's big and bulky, featuring a yellow and gray paint job with hazard stripes around the end of the weapon, giving it an appearance similar to industrial equipment. It comes equipped with a drum mag, meaning that it obviously has a very large magazine capacity, so you can hold down the trigger for much longer than any other assault rifle in the game right now. And the slow fire rate adds to the longevity of each magazine as well. The fire rate is also the slowest out of every assault rifle, which some might find frustrating, but I find it to be a bit satisfying. You combine that with the high recoil, and it adds a certain weight to the Liberator Concussive that you just won't find with most weapons. It's just really fun to unload this hefty weapon into a group of enemies, which also happens to be where it shines due to its concussive rounds. You can hold a horde of enemies back very effectively with this weapon, which combines well with a guard dog or sentry turrets. So try this one out if you like the idea of an effective concussive weapon for your primary slot. Next up, we have the AR-23A Liberator Carbine. And now for something completely different, the Liberator Carbine is almost the exact opposite of the Liberator Concussive. It's very small compared to the other assault rifles, especially when stacked up against the other Liberator variants. It comes painted with some type of tiger stripe or brush stroke camouflage. Combine that with its small stature, and it's clearly meant to be a much more subtle weapon, so it fits the theme of the Viper Commando's Warbond. I'm not sure why someone taped a purse to it, but whatever. You can burn through ammo with this thing like it's nobody's business, and that's because the fire rate is insanely high, much higher than the other assault rifles, and it keeps the same magazine capacity as the standard Liberator, so in practice, you should be using it in short controlled bursts, but going full auto is just as fun, and that's what we're here for. The only true downside is the relatively small magazine size for such a fast-firing weapon. This unfortunately makes it less viable and less fun, but it's still a pretty good time anyways. Next up is the R2124 Constitution. And some of you might be surprised to see this here because I talk a lot of about this weapon. But I'll still admit that it's a fun novelty. It is most often compared to an M1903 Springfield, which was used throughout World War I and World War II, and even saw use in the Korean War and the Vietnam War. Nowadays, it's not used by any conventional military forces for any real purpose, and is instead more of a historical relic for civilian ownership. This is exactly how it's portrayed in Helldivers 2 as well. It is most definitely outclassed by our modern weapons, and even the in-game description describes it as simply a ceremonial rifle. Despite all of that, it can be enjoyable to use on lower difficulties, or if you're a total masochist, you can use it for a challenge run on Super Helldive. It's one of only 2 bolt-action rifles in the game, the other being the Eruptor. So if you fancy yourself a standard bolt-action rifle, this really is your only choice right now. I also have to give it bonus points for being the only weapon that currently has a bayonet on it, so it does have something unique going for it in that regard. The Constitution might not be great stat-wise, but I can appreciate it for what it is. Just please give it a stripper clip, please, Arrowhead. It only makes sense. Okay, thanks, Arrowhead. Next up is the R6 Deadeye. This beast is the only one of its kind, the first and currently the only lever-action rifle in Helldivers 2. It has a sleek and simple look, a metallic base with what seems to be a polymer stock and handguard, but I won't pretend to know that for sure. Simply put, it's a very modern palette for a classic style of weapon. This is a very fun weapon for two main reasons: the stats and the style. I haven't gotten to talk about this weapon on my channel yet, but here's my opinion on it, performance-wise. I absolutely love it. It is definitely one of my favorite weapons in the game so far. It is extremely powerful for a marksman rifle, and is a better sniper than our only sniper rifle. But then again, everything is better than that joke of a weapon. The Deadeye hits hard. It penetrates medium armor, it's a lever action, it has great damage. I don't know what else you could want from a rifle. It's definitely my favorite part of the latest Warbond, so make sure to check that out if you haven't already. Next up is the SG-451 Cookout. And to be fair, all of the Punisher variants are pretty fun, but this one is definitely my favorite. Visually, it's basically a Punisher with some orange accents, a multicolored muzzle brake, and an awesome skull from Google Images. It's just your run-of-the-mill pump-action shotgun, but it fires flammable pellets in a wide spread, meaning that it can easily damage multiple enemies and light them on fire. So it's really fun to use against a large group of bugs, for example. The feedback from every shot is really satisfying. Pump actions already feel very powerful, but this one has a really cool heat wave effect after every shot, and then you get to watch all those flaming pellets disperse. It's just a really cool thing to see. I suppose you could put the other Punisher variants on this list too, but I'm just going to go with this one because I think it stands out among the rest. Next up, we have each and every one of the Breaker variants, those being the SG-225 Breaker, the SG-225 SP Breaker, Spray and Pray, and the SG-225 IE Breaker, Incendiary. These shotguns are simply a joy to use, and each one has their own little quirks that make them distinct from each other. The Breaker platform is an automatic shotgun, so you can just hold down the trigger and mow down enemies. Now let's talk about each variant in detail for a moment. The standard Breaker is simply an average automatic shotgun. 16 rounds in the mag with respectable damage per shell at 300 RPM. The Spray and Pray has a drum magazine and a slightly better fire rate, but sacrifices some damage per shell. The main thing that sets apart the Spray and Pray from the default is the duckbill choke, meaning that the spread of pellets is much more horizontal than it is vertical, so it's much better against large groups than it is against single targets. The Breaker Incendiary does exactly what you think it does. It fires incendiary shells just like the Cookout does. It has the same damage and the same drum mag that the Spray and Pray does, but only has the fire rate of the standard Breaker. The Incendiary is limited to burst fire mode, but if you're proficient with it, you can make it fire at pretty much the same speed as a full auto. It also doesn't have the duckbill choke, so your shots will spread out all over the place, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, actually, for an incendiary shotgun. Overall, which one of these that you prefer will depend on your personal preference, but they're all worth trying out at some point. Just like the Cookout, I personally prefer the Breaker Incendiary the most, but each Breaker variant is just really fun to use in their own right, and they all have their own merit. Next up, we have the SG-8P Punisher Plasma. This one is for all the fans of the EPG from Titanfall. And don't forget, Titanfall 3 is coming soon, and no, I won't take my pills. It's basically a Punisher with a bunch of nonsense doohickeys strapped onto it. It fires a big ball of plasma that explodes on impact, damaging and staggering enemies in a small radius. It's essentially a grenade launcher without a proper explosion, so even though it is listed as an explosive weapon, it cannot close bug holes, destroy fabricators, or destroy illuminate ships. Every shot you fire will feel powerful, and it's satisfying to use in general. It's really fun to use against a crowd of enemies. You'll easily stagger them and deal some good damage while you're at it. I like to run it against bugs. They group up a lot, so it's easy to make full use out of it, but you can use it against pretty much any faction. And there's not much else to say about this one, really. If you like what you see, then go give it a try. Next up, we have both of the sickle variants, those being the LAS-16 sickle and the LAS-17 double-edge sickle. These are two of my favorite automatic weapons. Not only are they extremely effective, but the feeling of shooting them is just amazing. It's chef's kiss. Visually, they remind me a lot of laser weapons from Fallout, which I would say is a good thing. They evoke the same retro sci-fi feeling without looking completely silly. And the sound design of these weapons is just incredible to hear when you're mowing down a group of enemies. They sound perfectly appropriate for the kind of weapons they are. The spinning crosshairs are really fun too. They add another layer of visual feedback. And let's not forget that you can theoretically fire these weapons infinitely with a single heatsink. All you have to do is lay off the trigger for a while to let it cool down. And in the meantime, you can always pull out your secondary weapon. And speaking of secondaries, we're going to get into the secondaries now, with my first pick for this category being the P19 Redeemer. This bulky hunk of metal is our only option for a fully automatic secondary right now, so of course I had to include it here. It was clearly engineered with one purpose: to shoot as many bullets as fast as possible while also fitting in one hand. It is a great weapon to fall back on when your other weapons run out or overheat. It has the second highest fire rate in the game, so full auto can be a lot of fun, but bursting your shots is advised. It feels really cool to be running away with an objective like a hard drive while you're looking over your shoulder and spraying into a crowd of enemies that are chasing you. It's like an action movie. I'm pretty sure that everyone has this thing, so I don't need to go on and on about it, but it's just a fun weapon, so of course it has to be on here. Next up, we have the P4 Senator. This one is definitely my favorite secondary, and in my opinion is the most fun out of the bunch. The Senator is a boxy yet sleek revolver. It fires out of the bottom of the cylinder instead of the top, like most classic and well-known revolvers do. Sometimes when you pull it out, you do a little twirl with it, which is a nice little touch. Now, I gotta mention this real quick. This weapon does have one of the worst sights in the game by far. It just sucks. But that is my only real gripe with this weapon. For a long time, this was the only standard loadout weapon that could penetrate heavy armor, and it is still only one of two weapons that can. It deals some pretty great damage to go along with the penetration. This makes it viable against many of the toughest enemies in the game if you're a good shot, but you'll need a lot of skill or a lot of luck to take out a Hulk with this thing. But the ability to do that at all with a secondary shows just how good it really is. If you consider yourself a skilled gunslinger, then you'll want this iron. Some might even call it a large iron. Next up, we have the CQC-5 Combat Hatchet. The Combat Hatchet is simple. It's an axe. That's really it. I could have put any of the melee weapons here, but I simply think that this one is the coolest. You can pair this weapon with a ballistic shield to go full Viking mode, running around and chopping up enemies to your heart's content. I'm not a big fan of melee weapons in this game. Usually I would just rather shoot enemies instead of running up and hitting them, but I will admit that melee weapons can be useful in an emergency. After all, you don't need to reload an axe or a stick. And, of course, these weapons are very unique and can be fun to use every once in a while. Sadly, you can only pick this up from the Superstore, so not everyone is going to have it, but there is a melee weapon in the Urban Legends Warbond, so pick up that Warbond if you can't have this one. Next up, we have the SG-22 Bushwhacker. This is the one and only secondary shotgun. It is a triple barrel, break action, sawed off shotgun. Basically a short and fat version of the break action that you can find in missions. But this one can fit in one hand. It's a great weapon to switch to when enemies are a bit too close for comfort, because it can dish out a crazy amount of damage at point blank. The best part about this weapon, in my opinion, is the alternate firing mode. You can switch it to shoot all three barrels at once. This converts the weapon into a devastating short-range hand cannon. It's really a one-of-a-kind weapon and a solid pick for a close-range secondary. And beyond that, there's nothing to know about it. If you like the idea of having a shotgun in your back pocket, then go and pick it up. Next up, we have the P72 Crisper. This is another very unique weapon. It is simply a handheld flamethrower, but putting that into your secondary slot can be a lot of fun. Despite it being a dangerous piece of equipment, it looks like a toy at glance, like some kind of water gun, but that couldn't be further from the truth. You can whip it out at a moment's notice and just start spraying fire at anything close to you. It's great fun, and it's pretty useful too. The crisper gives you some area denial right in your pocket, and since flames can damage almost any enemy in the game, it's always going to have some merit. I wish I could say that the fun never stops with the crisper, but it has a short range, so the fun quite literally does stop after a few meters. It also has a very small magazine, a small fuel canister, but that's not really anything out of the ordinary for a handheld flamethrower. Nonetheless, it is still a great choice and it belongs on this list. Now, we're going to move on to throwable weapons, starting off with the TED-63 Dynamite. This is our newest throwable weapon, and it is the most unique out of the standard grenades. The first thing you'll notice is the appearance. It is literally just a bundle of dynamite sticks. So visually, it definitely stands out in this category. It features a programmable fuse timer, but I honestly can't think of any time where I would actually want to use it. The shortest timer you can set it for is 5 seconds, which is already the longest grenade fuse in the game, so I don't think it needs to be any longer than that. Surely there's some kind of situation where you can use the 15-second and 60-second options. I'm just not aware of them. The explosive itself is quite powerful. It deals the second highest damage out of all the standard grenades and has the largest damage radius, so it's the best for dealing with a large crowd of enemies. You might have to cook it for a second or two before you throw it though. 5 seconds can feel like an eternity when you're being chased down by a group of bugs. And beyond that, it's just a standard grenade. There's not much else to it. It's just pretty unique compared to the rest of them. But I've been having a lot of fun using it so far. I think it's actually pretty damn good, so go check it out. Next up, we have the incendiary grenades, being the G10 Incendiary and the G13 Incendiary Impact. Incendiary grenades are a ton of fun in every game that you can use them in. It's fun to set things on fire, and it's fun to throw grenades, so what's not to love? I'm grouping these two together because they're obviously quite similar. These grenades spread fire over a generous area after they explode, which is great for area denial and damage over time. I personally prefer the Impact. I find that the Impact still gets the job done. It still has a good radius on it, and the fire still lasts for long enough. But both of them are still good choices, and they're mostly interchangeable. The standard incendiary does actually do more damage with the initial explosion if you care about that, but in general, you can take whichever one that you prefer. They're similar enough to where it's not going to make or break anything, but they're both really fun, so go ahead and try them out. Next up, we have the G50 Seeker. Are you a fan of impact grenades, but you're just tired of having to do all of the work actually aiming them? Well, then you might like the Seeker. It is a very entertaining weapon, for sure. It's basically like if impact grenades were little robots with tiny helicopter blades and the mindset of a kamikaze pilot. You can simply toss it away in any direction, and the Seeker will find a target for you. It's pretty funny to watch this little guy just zip around and blow himself up. The grenade itself shares stats with the impact grenade, so if you're using impact grenades to damage enemies, then this is a great option for you. You can make it work against bug holes and illuminate ships if you're up close and you toss it right in there, but trying to toss this thing into a fabricator is not easy. So in my opinion, these are a no-go on bot missions because you never know when you're going to need a grenade in your back pocket to toss into a fabricator. So it really all depends on where you dive and how you as a player use it. It can be really effective, but most importantly, it's a fun little piece of equipment that I can recommend to pretty much anyone. Now, we're going to move on to our last category, the support weapons. And first up, I have a group of 3 weapons, those being the machine gun, the stalwart, and the HMG. The reason that I'm grouping these 3 together is because they're all essentially different tiers of the basic machine gun. The stalwart is mobile and lightweight, the machine gun is average, and the HMG is obviously a heavy hitter. Even though they're very basic weapons, each of them have a different feel to them, but they're all satisfying for the same reason. Going full auto with a machine gun just doesn't get old. Take the stalwart, for example. You can really just let it rip with an absurd rate of fire, mowing down groups of enemies on the go, and it's simple to use and it performs like an overtuned primary weapon pretty much. And then you have the standard machine gun. So with this one you can just go Rambo mode and spray everywhere. but with medium armor penetration, so you can deal damage to more enemies, but at the cost of fire rate and a stationary reload. And the HMG takes it a step further, slowing things down even more, but it can be used in some intense firefights, posting up and pelting enemies with those heavy rounds. They all bring something to the table, and they're all fun to use in different ways. Machine guns will never go out of style, they're just too satisfying to use. Next up, we have the anti-material rifle. I had to include this on here because it's really our only option for a classic sniper rifle, and it fills that role pretty well. As the name would suggest, it can penetrate heavy armor, and it does that from long range too. It comes with a high-powered scope and is semi-automatic, so it can dish out very consistent damage over long range. The feeling of nailing a bot right in the head is super satisfying, or picking one off of the back of their strider, that's even better. And I would definitely recommend taking it on the bot front. It feels right at home when you're fighting the faction with the longest range, so you can use this to lead to some really cool firefights. It also feels great to ambush an enemy group from long range. It makes the game feel completely different when you're playing as a sneaky sniper guy. So if you like sniping in other games, then try this one out. It's pretty satisfying and it punches through some pretty heavy armor. Next up, we have the recoilless rifle and the quasar cannon. I'm grouping these two together because they essentially fill the same role. They're both AT launchers, but they do have some key differences that will lead you to choose one over the other depending on your preference. The recoilless rifle is a hefty beast of a weapon, only able to reload while stationary and requiring an ammo backpack. The user must be decisive about when and when not to use it, but the payoff you get is incredible. It deals insane amounts of damage to just about everything in the game, and it's really satisfying to use. The quasar cannon, on the other hand, is much more mobile. It's heat-based, so there is no need to reload it at all. You just need to wait for it to cool down. This is great because you can switch to another weapon in the meantime and stay on the move in between shots, but it does mean that you'll be waiting longer than if you had the option to manually reload. It also doesn't require a backpack to use, so you can bring extra utility like a jump pack or a guard dog. It doesn't do nearly as much damage as the recoilless rifle, but it does have the same armor penetration, meaning you can use it for all the same purposes, but you'll simply be using it in a different manner. As you can see, these are both great options and they're super fun to use. The sound effects for both are great, and the feeling of taking out buildings and dropships is just amazing. Definitely check these out if you haven't already. Next up, we have the flamethrower. I've talked about the flamethrower many times before, but I'll do it again. It is simply one of the most fun weapons in the game, in my opinion. And as far as video game flamethrowers go, it's definitely one of my favorites. It has decent range and can penetrate heavy armor, so it can be used on pretty much any mission as long as you can position yourself correctly. Holding down the trigger and just decimating a group of enemies never felt better than it does with this thing, so it is a ton of fun against bugs. You'll feel like the world's coolest exterminator, especially if you decide to bring some fire-resistant armor. I could have included the torture on this list too, because I like flamethrowers in general, but to me it feels like an awkward middle ground between the standard flamethrower and the crisper. It takes up the primary slot, which can be frustrating, plus the standard flamethrower is definitely the more fun option. There's really not much else to say about the flamethrower. It's a really fun weapon, and I recommend it to everyone watching if they somehow haven't already used it. Next up, we have the railgun. I mean, what do I really need to say about it? It's a railgun. It's badass. The railgun is capable of dealing immense damage over pretty much any distance, and it deals a lot of damage if you know how to use it. So basically, you charge up each shot before firing. It takes a second, but it's worth it for the damage output you get from it. But there's a trick to this weapon. You can enable unsafe mode. This essentially allows you to charge it beyond its normal limits. Unsafe mode can allow you to do almost 3 times the amount of damage, but be careful. If you charge it for too long, the weapon itself will explode in your hands. You'll be down a support weapon, and you'll have taken quite a bit of damage in the process. So you have to be skilled if you're going to use this weapon to its fullest potential. But regardless of all that, it's still really fun to use because it's a goddamn railgun. Next up, we have the Wasp Launcher. This is one of the weapons that was introduced in the Killzone crossover from late last year, and it's probably my favorite addition from the entire crossover. It is a genuinely fun and very viable pick, and it's one of the only lock-on based weapons in the game. There are two firing modes, Burst and Artillery. Burst splits your magazine into 7 missiles, each of them dealing decent damage and are anti-tank, so they can deal effective damage to almost anything in the game. This mode is very satisfying to use. You can just pelt enemies with a rain of explosives from a long distance. The other firing mode, Artillery, is one that I'm not very fond of personally. Artillery mode will consume the entire magazine in a single shot, firing an air burst over an enemy's position. The problem I have with the Artillery mode is simple. The damage and penetration don't compare well to the Burst mode. An artillery shot deals less damage than a magazine of burst fire, and can only penetrate medium armor, so it's downright worse for direct damage, and that's on a weapon that already doesn't have a great ammo economy. Plus, you're not spending as much time shooting, which is often not as fun as shooting it all in one go. So while I can only recommend a single firing mode for the Wasp Launcher, the Burst mode is really fun. It works at long range, it can deal good damage, and it's really satisfying to use, especially on the PS5 controller, where you have the trigger, what do you call it? Whatever. Anyway, the Wasp Launcher is a really fun one, so go ahead and check it out if you haven't already. And last, but not least, we have the Grenade Launcher. This one is a classic. It really excels in certain categories, and is always a fun pick. It's obviously just a simple grenade launcher, but simplicity can be appealing, especially after I just got done explaining the Wasp Launcher. It's belt-fed, with belts that contain 10 grenades, so it packs quite a bit of firepower for every reload, especially since each grenade has great damage potential and deals damage in a generous radius. You can fire the grenade launcher in semi-auto or full auto, and it's really fun to watch the enemies ragdoll after you hit them with a grenade. They just go limp and just fall backwards a lot of the time. I like to take the grenade launcher against the bugs because they don't have a lot of armored enemies, and they like to group up, so every grenade you fire will be able to deal lots of damage to a group of enemies. The best part about using the grenade launcher against bugs is the ability to close bug holes very quickly and very efficiently. With 10 grenades in each belt, you can clear almost any size of bug nest with ease. I also like taking it against the Illuminate for a lot of the same reasons. It's great against the Voteless, and it can destroy their parked ships once you lower the shields, but it's also great at destroying their Tesla towers, and those things can be really goddamn annoying when you're fighting the Illuminate in any city map. And that's the grenade launcher. It's simple, fun, effective, and you can use it on pretty much any faction. It's better against some than others, though. And there you have it. More than 24 of my favorite weapons in Helldivers 2. But these are just my opinions, and I want to know what everyone else thinks. I read all of my comments, so make sure you tell me what your favorite weapons are in the comment section. And I want to give a huge thank you to anyone that's watched this far in the video. It's a long one. It's my second longest video that I've ever made, so I really appreciate it. And I would really appreciate if you would leave a like and share this video, and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this one. I quite enjoy making videos like this, these kind of easy to talk through, casual, informational videos. They're pretty fun to make, so I'm going to do a lot more of these in the future. Also, streaming. I'm going to be streaming soon. Because I actually need a capture card to go from PS5 to PC and have it be at a good quality with good audio and all that. I plan on doing some fun things like randomized loadouts or challenging runs on Super Helldive or crazy things like that. And that's all I have for today, so this is the SES Prophet of Dawn signing off.